Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's AMA. We've still got a bunch of people kind of filing into the room right now, but I'm going to kick off with our intro while everyone comes in. So, as we said on the event invite, this AMA this week is completely dedicated to our community airdrop, which launched last week on Wednesday, October 11th, and will now be running through Wednesday, November 1st. So, obviously, since we launched our balance claim and withdrawal bots last week, there's been a ton of questions and excitement from the community about the airdrop. And we wanted to just come on live today to make sure that we're able to answer a bunch of questions. Our mods have been super hard at work helping a lot of folks troubleshoot, but we pulled in a bunch of questions that are more kind of like big picture questions around the airdrop that we definitely wanted to communicate and kind of get in the room with you guys one-on-one to discuss. So as a quick update before we kick off, a lot of you may have noticed that our airdrop bot is currently down for maintenance as of this morning. Will took it offline this morning. It's to fix this weird data pulling bug that we discovered where about 200 community members who should have been eligible were left out of the drop. Thank you, Bad Wolf or Killfish, if you're in the AMA today, for alerting us to the issue early on. Will did a lot of work figuring out, diagnosing why those community members got left out. But when the bot's up and running, those community members will be folded back into the fold and able to claim their tokens. That said, to accommodate these members, we wanted to be fair with it. So we did extend our claim period for the drop by 1 week earlier this week. So basically, everyone has until Wednesday, October 25th to make a claim for 100% of the tokens they're eligible for. And then from Thursday, October 26th through November 1st, we basically have this redemption period where anyone who missed out on the kind of first 2 weeks of claiming will be able to claim 50% of their tokens. After that, all unclaimed tokens from the drop are going to be redistributed back to the community, including a special drop for our validators, some of our EAP partners, and also all of our L1 Discord members, including some of the folks who joined us new now that, things are heating up with Betanet and our Avalanche announcement and the airdrop announcement. So if you did join the server after 9/7, which was our official cutoff date for this first airdrop, definitely stay tuned. We definitely wanted to make sure we're noticing that not all of the tokens are going to be claimed. And so we want to pump that back into a community and are discussing and figuring out how to do that now. I'm going to drop a link into the chat just to kick things off. If anyone has not read this post before, it's basically a blog post that lays out details on the claim process, the awards criteria, the math behind the airdrop that we used. It should answer a bunch of kind of like top line questions about the airdrop. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. And yeah, I think with that out of the way, I just wanted to dive into some questions with you. So today, you can see on stage, I'm joined by our CTO, Will Carter. He has been the mastermind behind the airdrop claim bot and all of the math, and a total fellow co-conspirator in the drop test and logistics. It's been a big lift. It's really been kind of a wild ride for us, and we really appreciate you guys for sticking with us and coming along with us for the ride. So I guess to kind of kick things off, one of the biggest questions we got from the community this week from members such as my name, GCH, Lulu520.wallet, basically is, what is the point of this airdrop? Is it really just for test tokens? And what are we really trying to achieve here by flooding the community with, millions of L1 Betanet tokens?
Good question. There's quite a few things we hope to accomplish here. One is testing, obviously, and we're glad we're doing that because we're catching issues like what happened with the missing airdrops. So part of it is testing the smart contracts for the airdrops. Part of it's testing the deployment of the individual airdrops themselves. Part of it's testing the formulation for airdrop scores. In a live environment with real people to get a sense for what people feel is fair. And once we've tested all that, then it's also, looking at what people end up doing with these tokens and trying to use this as a data point for when we do a mainnet airdrop. So we'll have tested infrastructure at that point. We'll have a good idea of, how the community has used tokens over the past. We'll incorporate some of that data into new airdrop amounts. And it's really just to get ready for eventual mainnet and make sure that everything's tested. Like, we're learning a lot from even the community and how you interact with the airdrop bot, and how viable it is to, say, use your Discord ID as the identifier for an airdrop, since a lot of people are dropping in and out of the server, and that messes up with some of the calculations. So this is all stuff that, it's best to test out before we're dealing with real tokens, and that's why we're doing it now in Betanet. And it's supposed to give you kind of a preview of what the eventual amounts might look like for you based on your relative contribution to the community, which we divided up across a number of factors. And I'm not sure if there's a question that goes through those factors, and I honestly don't remember if we've made public those factors yet, but if not, we can talk about them maybe a little bit later. And yeah, I think that's about it. And also, we're working with a lot of partners to release stuff on the beta net, and people are going to need some tokens to interact with that stuff, and this is a good way to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, we definitely have a question about the criteria, and I'm happy to go over that again with folks. It's also in the blog post that I just posted in the chat feed, but we'll definitely go over it verbally as well. So next up, we also got a number of variations of this question from the likes of Kavi Arasi, Rum Harjai, and Airdrop Dev, kind of around like, why is my drop X amount? Why isn't it higher? And, what are the criteria and math that you took behind the allocation? So yeah, again, I will take this one. So the way that we did our airdrop is a little bit different than traditional Web3 communities, which is why it's probably been frustrating from a bunch of rewards farmers who've been like popping in and out of the community, trying to farm tokens. We took Zeely scores. That was obviously one of our primary data points, but actually weighted even heavier than that was your long-term engagement on our Discord server. So there were a couple of factors that we put into play. One of that was join date. So again, if you left and then rejoined the server, that join date score would have been significantly impacted. It was also the number of badges that you attained. So, we've badged people for doing things like checking out early access releases of our white papers or participating in cryptography challenges. Basically, if you've been kind of participating in initiatives and education stuff that we've been putting out over the last year and been collecting those badges, that also went into your score, as well as just the number of messages that you have sent on the server. So we did highlight some priority channels. So basically, if you messaged good morning or good night on our GMGN channel every day, that wasn't necessarily something that we took into account. Instead, we were really looking to reward community members who were, actively answering questions, participating in interest groups, assisting other community members on L1 helps L1. So again, check out that Medium post. I really I lay out what the weights were for certain engagement types and everything, but the kind of TLDR is we worked really hard to orchestrate the math so that we were rewarding as many real super engaged long-term builders as possible, which is why you'll see that a lot of the whales in our community are names that you are probably very familiar with, the Alchemist 19 and Jackal Girls of the world. They come here every day, they answer a ton of questions, and they were rewarded for it. And so that was the criteria that we were testing, and we wanted to see, I think, as Will was saying before, since this is kind of a new way for calculating how airdrops are done, we wanted to test it out. We wanted to see how it worked. We wanted to see if through all of the algorithms we were building, that we were actually able to catch those engaged users. And I really do think that we've done a pretty good job at that. It doesn't seem like we have too many spammers or scammers who got super heavily rewarded in the airdrop, which is kind of what it was designed to do. In general, Lamina1, we're trying to make and create like real value for our chain and for metaverse builders. And we're trying to steady ourselves against the traditional kind of like hype cycles of crypto that has killed so many really promising projects in this space, right? um so yeah, that's me taking a stand on the criteria. I'm going to move on to another question from David Venom DeGame, who asks, will future airdrop criteria be based on these same factors? And are we planning any future airdrops for mainnet or beyond?
Uh, Without any strict promises, yes, like we're planning on airdropping at least the same amount of tokens at mainnet. So we allocated 30 million tokens in this airdrop. The plan is to do the same at mainnet. As far as the criteria goes, some of it will be similar, I think, but we're hoping to introduce some additional criteria as well. And again, this is something we'll work through and fine tune, and maybe even get some community feedback on well before we do that final mainnet airdrop. But we don't have the additional criteria ready to share at this point in time. But yeah, it's going to be some of the same criteria. So we are still going to be paying attention to some of your engagement in the Discord channels and um, in Zeely, but also we're going to be looking at maybe some on-chain activity as well and seeing like who's actually building things, who's being active on chain, and we're going to try to find some ways to reward those people as well.
Awesome. Kiki Sweet asks, will Betanet airdrop tokens be converted one-to-one to mainnet in the future? I wanted to address this question because this is like a big thing that I think we need to clarify in the community.
Yeah, I don't know if you want me to answer it, but yeah, I think no, they're not going to be converted one to one at mainnet. So yeah, if you end up collecting 100,000 L1 tokens during betanet, that does not mean you're going to have 100,000 L1 tokens at mainnet. It may influence, as I said, some of the calculations for an eventual mainnet airdrop, but there definitely will not be a one-to-one conversion. So the point, and that's like, we don't want you to just hoard tokens and not use them for development or be afraid to use them for development. Like we're more interested in activity and how you're using tokens more than like how many tokens you're gathering. But if you build a cool application that a lot of people use and it ends up making you a lot of tokens, yeah, maybe we'll use that as a parameter for on-chain engagement. But yeah, we're still figuring it out. But short answer is no, there won't be a one-to-one conversion. So feel free to spend them and use them.
Yeah, use them, spend them. We had a couple of testnet token hoarders in the previous thing, and we wiped all of the tokens out and definitely noticed. I was like, oh man, I hope those people are okay. So don't want the same thing to happen to them. And also, I mean, when we're launching, premium usernames and items and spaces, like don't feel like you have to like hold on to those tokens. The point of this is to use them and, help us create a, realistic economic environment where tokens are going back and forth a bunch. Like that's the whole point of this. So Nguyen Vo, Paco B, Shadow Sparrow, and WNFT asked, there's been a lot of questions around like what the locking period is about. So, what exactly does locking Betanet tokens for 1 year mean? Will the token unlocks kind of keep repeating every 72 hours until the final end date? And will we have enough time to withdraw all of our tokens and before mainnet? Like, can you go in just a little bit deeper for the community, Will, about like what that locking period means, like long term, and like how they're gonna have to withdraw tokens?
Yeah, so first, like why, what was the purpose of the 1 year lockup? That's to allow, to ensure that a bunch of tokens don't hit the open market, whatever that market might look like on day one of mainnet. And so that's something we wanted again to test during Betanet, which is the gradual unlocking of tokens over a period of time so that you don't end up with, 30 to 50 million liquid tokens on the market on day one, which can cause a lot of volatility. So this is to ensure that people are able to pull out a small amount of tokens gradually every 72 hours. That's what we're testing at the moment, over the period of a year. And so when you look at, I think the balance function that I added to the airdrop bot in Discord, it'll tell you how long the lockup period is, and then your ability to take tokens out of, over that 1 year lockup period, which everyone should have, your tokens linearly vest. So that's some people do linear vesting, some people do exponential vesting. We're doing a linear vest, which basically means your tokens unlock in a linear way over time. And that'll be broken up into 72-hour claim periods. And that's mostly so that you can't spam the bot, since we're paying for your transaction fees. So we let you claim however many tokens have been unlocked every 72 hours. During Betanet, you will not, it's unlikely you're going to reach that 1 year period. So there's going to be coins that just are never unlocked by the time we reach mainnet. And that's, we actually went back and forth whether or not we should shorten the period to whatever the expected lifetime of Betanet would be, but we decided instead, again, for testing, to just make it as close to the mainnet parameters as possible, so that expectations are set and so that we can kind of get a real feel for how this actually ends up playing out in the community. So that's probably going to be the same scenario at mainnet. Again, I'm not going to promise that, but so far I think it's playing out fine. And if you have suggestions or questions about that, or even you want to propose a different idea, then we're happy to hear it.
I can confirm that while I may not reply to everyone's suggestions and messages, I do compile them in a massive bi-weekly feedback log that I show to all of our developers and product leads. So yeah, definitely share those thoughts and ideas with us. I'm really monitoring the server. It's been super fascinating kind of hearing community sentiment and suggestions around the airdrop so far. And again, we're kind of like adjusting the process and the data and the way we're going to do it for mainnet. Like that's the whole purpose of this. So yeah, definitely share it. I will take a look at it. I often will put like little eyeballs underneath your comments when I'm considering something. So definitely keep us updated. Ahendra and OX Lucky asked, can you tell me a little bit more about the plan for the reallocation of unclaimed tokens later on? Will new community members or folks who joined after the cutoff date of September 7th be eligible for that sort of follow-up airdrop?
Yeah, so what are we planning? Once we do the final claim period, we will revoke all airdrops that haven't been claimed. And whatever that pool of tokens that hasn't been claimed ends up looking like, we're going to be splitting it across a couple different initiatives. First, we're looking at trying to apply some of it to our validators who've been in the network, running Betanet and the testnet for quite a while. We did not have an airdrop specifically for them, and so that's one thing we want to do is reward them for operating the network. Another thing we're looking at is, yes, trying to reward everyone in the network. So the first airdrop was about really giving tokens out to the ones that were the most engaged in the community. But we also want to ensure that everyone in the community, even if they're new to the community, has a chance to get some tokens. So that's another consideration we're looking at, is trying to do something that's like a little bit more egalitarian and just spreads a small amount of tokens out to everyone in an equal amount. Um, and then some of them will end up going back to the foundation, which we're looking at using to incentivize like our early access partners and to give out to people who are building experiences on the network. So those are our kind of primary considerations at the moment, but it is something we're working through, Casey and I, as well as Peter, leading up to week 2.
Yeah, it will not drop until after the cutoff period of November 1st. So definitely stay tuned. And I think in general, if you are a new community member, and you're wondering like how can I be eligible for the drop, engage here, start doing quests. We release like 3 to 4 quests every week that you can participate in. Get into the system and start participating. That's kind of my biggest advice. Um, Nash Frere asks, and we've had a ton of people ask this question. I had to change my Discord, or I just logged in with a new Discord name, but I was a Discord member previously. Does that mean that I'm not eligible for tokens, or how can I get them? I think we've kind of gone over this before, but I'll answer this now. Yes, right now with the way that the airdrop is set up, if you left and then rejoined the server, or if you like have been using multiple Discord accounts to engage, like you probably aren't eligible if you did it before 9/7. That's been a huge point of friction, and we've definitely heard from a lot of community members like, hey, I logged in, I logged out, or I have a new handle now and none of my engagement tracked. It's something that I definitely want to think about for future airdrops, but I also just want to say like we have messaged over and over and over again in the community like that you need to be like linking and actively going with one account and not to hop off the server and then rejoin and all of that stuff. Also, a lot of that behavior, unfortunately, um, is pretty body looking. And we're trying to combat a lot of that stuff going on in the server right now, as I'm sure you guys can imagine. When you announce an airdrop as a Web3 company, we are swamped by non-human robots trying to collect tokens and things like that. So I think in general, like you'll probably be left out if you left and then rejoin the server. Again, though, stay tuned for that follow-up drop. We definitely want to give folks a redemption period and an ability to get tokens, even if they may have missed out on the crazy kind of like engagement tracking scores that we put together for this first drop. Focal Killen has a different sort of question. Have been watching you muse quite a bit on the server, but they were asking, now that we've got a lot of tokens, I can imagine, for example, a group of people getting together to have a DAO type community validator node, or, sort of like banding together to do token pools. Is that the kind of thing we're anticipating, thinking about at this time? Like, what are our thoughts on those types of things? I mean, now that we have a bunch of people with tokens in their hands, is that something we're condoning, interested in?
So I think it's a really cool idea. We certainly don't have any problem with you doing something like that. I would be careful with how you do something like that. The current way the network is set up, you need, I think, like around 32,000 liquid tokens in order to stake a validator. And it would be tough to pool all of those tokens from different sources together in a way that you weren't basically trusting whoever's managing that pool to not take the tokens and run. So while I think it's a cool idea, and I would certainly condone any type of DAO community initiative, just be careful with how you implement it. And I, to the extent that I have bandwidth and time, I'd be happy to review some ideas around that to like point out any obvious issues. But yeah, if you guys have an idea and want to push that forward, let's do it. It sounds like fun. It's a good use of tokens.
Yeah, totally. Um, Kind of actually speaking of that, we got a bunch of questions from folks on like, okay, now we've got all these tokens. What do we do with them? Right? Like there's I know that there's quite like a limited amount of things that you can do on the Lamina1 hub right now, but I feel like we've answered this question every week, Will. But for folks who are new here, and I know we've got a ton of new community members, like what other than creating a DAO and stuff, what are the types of things that L1 community members are going to be able to do with their tokens on Betanet moving forward?
Um, Great question. Yeah, part of it's development. If you're trying to develop an experience or some type of NFT project or whatever, like you can use them for those development purposes. You can use them on other experiences as they launch. I think Peter is going to be launching an experience pretty soon. We have Space Lasers, which is a little demo experience coming, and then a bunch of partner experiences. I was just thinking just now, like maybe we should like require you to insert some L1 as like arcade tokens to play Space Lasers or something. Um, but those are all things you can do. Again, like I don't want people to think of L1 tokens as just like money. I like to think of L1 tokens more as influence in the network, and ways that you can drive the network in certain directions. I'd like to start developing some DAO-like functionality in the network, so people would be able to vote with the tokens, and provide feedback that's weighted by the number of tokens that they have. And then validation and delegation. So I think there are a number of community validators who we've I think we call them partner validators actually, that we're staking on their behalf. They could use their Betanet tokens to delegate on themselves to increase their rewards. You, as token holders who are not operating a validator, you could delegate your tokens on validators and earn some rewards that way. So I think those are like the top level things that I can imagine doing. But again, like as experiences come out, there's going to be new ways to use the tokens. So.
Kind of related to that validator question, we've got actually a flurry of questions in the chat right now that are like basically like I know that the threshold is 31,337 tokens to run a validator. There are people in the chat right now talking about like, could we all band together to donate, tokens to someone so that we could start up a validator together? Like, I know there are a ton of community members who are interested in onboarding as validators, and I know we've been pretty picky with who we've been selecting, and there's kind of a pretty small cohort of validators. Um, I don't know, Will, if you want to talk about the kind of reasonings why. I think the announcement we made yesterday may help shed some light on the reasoning for that as well. I don't know how far you want to get into it, but yeah. Lots of questions.
Like on the rewards that have been earned so far.
Yeah, like, are we looking for new validators? Are we planning to onboard new validators? If people want to pool their tokens together to become validators, is that okay?
Yeah, so tackling pulling tokens together first. Again, this is similar to the previous question. Yes, you're welcome to do that. It's something you can do. But there's limited ways to do that in a way that doesn't you require you to just trust
Yeah.
someone to handle those tokens correctly. You would be donating those tokens and hoping in good faith that they return whatever your share is later on. But it's something you can do, and that's largely because a lot of these tokens, eventually, or I guess if we had more time to do this, we would have tried to do airdrops on the P chain, which would allow people to use those locked up coins to stake. But because they were airdropped onto the C chain, you can't use them when they're locked up to stake. So that's one thing like we'll consider moving forward. Um, Other questions with regards to validators, I think the news went out about us partnering with Avalanche. And so one thing we're doing before we continue to onboard a bunch of validators quickly is kind of examine what being a validator in the new reality of us being partners with Avalanche might look like. So we want to make sure that um, we kind of have a clear-eyed vision of what your role is going to be like kind of going into mainnet and maybe a second phase of Betanet before we, have you spend resources on running a validator. But it's something we're working on actively, and we'll have more information for you soon. And then I think the last portion of that question was, a lot of us who are staking did not receive a lot of rewards at the end of our staking period. Um, and that's because when we did the staking, because we were basically staking all the coins on your behalf, we kept the delegation reward, or sorry, the validation rewards, and then we said that you guys would keep the delegation rewards. In retrospect, there's just not a lot of tokens out there that are being delegated, and so what ended up happening was a lot of people did not got very, very small rewards at the end of their validation period. So that's something we're going to fine tune in the next staking period, um, and try to find a way to make sure that you guys are getting like a fair reward for the work that you're doing. And it's also kind of the reason why we're looking at doing an extra reward via the unclaimed airdrops.
Yeah, I will say to any validators out there who were like, I didn't see my rewards, and then look to see that they got like 0.0002 L1 tokens at the end of the staking process, know that I was like, guys, I don't know if this is such a good idea moving forward. So yeah, we're gonna fix that. I think that was if you did get like a pittance, as is I think what I called it in our internal chats, we're working to rectify that. Um, I also wanted to take a moment to address several questions from the likes of Elite128, Frodo, Mary99, and others around why we have been booting so many folks out of the server recently and what the criteria for banning people has been. I'm going to take this one because I've been working super closely with our moderators to figure out how to ban and all of that stuff. But basically, after announcing the airdrop, we have been flooded by bot attacks. This is unfortunately pretty par for the course in Web3, especially after announcing an airdrop. And we definitely, in advance of the airdrop, we worked really hard behind the scenes to build up our own army of bots in advance to combat the onslaught of, potential spammers, scammers, sketchy behavior, people who are trying to, scam people by selling L1 Betanet tokens that are test tokens. We obviously don't want people to get ripped off and have their first experience with LAMINA1 be negative. So, yes, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to go into the exact criteria of banning. We don't want to teach everyone listening here how to bypass our security systems, but let's just say that with the systems we have set up right now, it's pretty easy to tell which accounts are linked to rewards farm networks and trying to sign up, dozens of simultaneously very similar looking and behaving accounts that put us at risk and add, frankly, no value to the community, right? Like, we are looking for real human beings who are interested in building the metaverse, right? Like, that's our number one priority. And it's keeping those folks safe, keeping spam down on the servers so that people have the space and ability to actually, build and engage and have worthwhile conversations on our server. So, if you think you've been banned unnecessarily, definitely reach out to us on one of our dedicated feedback channels. We do look into every claim seriously, and we have let a few folks back in. We had a person who shared a referral link or an invite link to our community that ended up being co-opted by rewards farmers. That obviously wasn't their fault. And so we ended up letting them back in after investigating it. But definitely like excuse us for being a little bit weary and asking you a bunch of questions if you do that, make that claim. Our mods are getting absolutely slammed right now by people trying to scam their way into the server, and we definitely don't have like a perfect way of keeping every bot away from Lamina1. If someone does have a perfect way for keeping bots from a Discord server, please let us know. But we are trying our best, and yeah, I mean, I think in general, it's all just about like keeping keeping the server safe and spam free for our community members, right? Like that's a huge thing that I'm super focused on, especially as we kind of move forward and especially after breaking the 50K member mark. Finally, I wanted to share some tips and tricks for the dozens of people who asked on the server. Essentially, I can't get the bot to work. What am I doing wrong? Kat has been sharing like an auto response to anyone who types a prompt in wrong into our Betanet airdrop channel. But basically, my tips for how to get the bot working once it's back up and running is actually type in the command. Don't just copy and paste it. Wait a second after typing it in. Make sure that you're selecting the command from the list, like actually click on it instead of typing it, and wait for it to populate. So for claim, you'll actually have to click into the address field to paste in your address. Just make sure that you're not just like spamming with codes and not reading what you're doing. We've tried to make it as easy as possible, and if you follow the directions in the airdrop instructions channel, we promise you that it will work fine. We test the heck out of it. And I also just wanted to remind that when you're inputting an address, please make sure that this is your LAMINA1 hub account that is connected to the Betanet. We've had a couple of community members who've tried to plug in their old testnet addresses or random wallets that aren't hooked up to Betanet. Like, do not do that. Like, step one in airdrop instructions is like, make sure you have a LAMINA1 hub account connected to Betanet, whether that's through just a direct LAMINA1 hub account or through your MetaMask. That's kind of up to you, but you got to make sure that's happening, because if you put in a testnet wallet address, it is not going to work. Yeah. So we've got about 7 minutes left here. I'm going to start going through the chat feed, just kind of pulling up some additional questions that you guys have been asking. Pieman asked, I think we've answered this question before, but I think this is like important to reiterate. Pieman asks, is there going to be some sort of like KYC that we do for people for future airdrops? Like, is LAMINA1 going to do any sort of KYC stuff related to airdrops?
Sorry, what was the question?
The answer is there are we ever considering starting to do some sort of KYC for future airdrops or access to LAMINA1?
I really hope not.
Yeah.
I can't give you a definite answer right now, but like we're going to do everything in our power to avoid having to do any type of KYC. And then if for whatever reason there is a KYC requirement, we've found some interesting ways or services that allow users to do it locally. So you don't actually share any information with us. It's something that's kind of verified locally on your phone using zero knowledge circuits, which we think is really cool. But the goal would be to not require any KYC.
Boy. EV Meth asks, we were talking a lot about the Discord claim method, and they asked, is the team satisfied with the Discord claim method? Is that something we're considering moving forward with?
Yeah, I think we've done our best to find a way to like we had to find some way to identify people without having their address, their blockchain address. And we had to find a way to map that blockchain address to the community engagement. So we figured it'd be easier to do that mapping via Discord ID. Again, in retrospect, if people leave the community because they didn't realize we were going to do that, that introduces some complexity and issues. But all in all, I think I'm pretty happy with the way it's worked out so far. I've tried to make this as literally easy as possible for you guys to use by implementing the Discord bot. But if you guys have suggestions on how to make it more usable or easier to use, happy to hear them. Still adding new functions to the bot as we speak. So if you have a good suggestion, I can try to throw it on the roadmap.
Awesome. And we've got one last question from Ed Keys, who asks, in terms of launching projects on the Betanet, obviously we said that that's one of the primary use cases for these L1 Betanet tokens. is it possible, or are community members allowed to create like new subnets or anything like that? Or is that on the roadmap?
Yeah, I mean, right now, community members can launch their own subnet if they would like. It doesn't cost a whole lot to do so. You will need to get some validators to back you, and we do have some validators in the community. Maybe we could find a way to make them easy to contact for people who are interested in operating a subnet. So that's something we can look at doing.
Yeah, all of our partner validators right now are badged. So they've got a little tag next to their name where you can see who they are. But yeah, super interesting. Ed, as always, you're giving us all sorts of great ideas and great data. According to Ed, about 60% of the airdrop has been claimed by the community, which is pretty high uptake, a lot of engagement. Ed, keep the stats coming. I love this info. um, Anyway, I'm gonna close it out now. That's kind of all of the questions that we're able to answer within this 45-minute window, but thank you all again for joining us and showing up. There is no quest or secret code for this AMA. We just wanted this to be the folks who had questions, and we didn't want to incentivize airdrop AMA. It felt a little weird in terms of the vibes, but just before we sign off, remember to, if you haven't claimed your airdrop already, please do so by 10/25 for 100%. Otherwise, you will have a redemption period through November 1st to get 50%. But obviously, I want to make sure as many community members get as many rewards as they can possible. I also wanted to plug again that if you haven't checked out our announcements channel yet already, please do so. We just dropped really big news yesterday that we're officially collaborating with Avalanche to bring the LAMINA1 Layer 1 onto their network. This is huge news for us. It means that we're going to be super supported. We're going to be able to develop, faster and more agilely. We'll be supported by one of the most badass blockchain teams out there right now. And I am in the works of trying to get the Avalanche team on for an upcoming AMA over the coming weeks to answer questions about what the partnership is going to mean for the community, for our validators, all of that stuff. We're kind of working together right now to iron out the details of the partnership and our sort of like roadmap moving forward, but we will definitely keep the community posted every step of the way. Anyway, though, this is like super big news. We've been sitting on it for a while now as the deal has been negotiated, and we're super excited to kind of share it with you all. Finally, if you're a Unity or Unreal developer interested in figuring out how to link your gamer experience to the LAMINA1 blockchain, or interested in launching a space on LAMINA1, I'm going to drop a link. We've got 2 workshops coming up next week for Unity and Unreal Engine developers that they can go on. We're going to be walking step by step with the Open Meta team, who are the creators of the Emergence SDK that we launched earlier this month, to start kind of gearing up developers to start building on LAMINA1. And we're gonna walk you through step by step what it's gonna take. We're also gonna be live minting an NFT in that workshop that'll go out to all of our attendees, and also making a special announcement about some upcoming creator competition and token grant opportunities. So if you've been waiting to build with us, we're going to drop the news first there for our workshop attendees. So definitely sign up. The signups actually close end of day today. So get your sign up form in. I will say you might want to be a little bit familiar with Unity and Unreal. It's not going to be a workshop teaching you how to use a game engine. You should probably be a little bit familiar with how to use game engines before you log in. But yeah, it's been a really big month for us, and we're super excited to have all of you, both our OG community members in Wales and all of our newcomers. Yeah, that's it for now, and thank you all. See you at the top of next week. Make sure you're claiming your airdrops, and I'll let you guys know when the bot's up and running again for you to do so. But thank you guys so much. This has been great.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.